Hello, my beautiful friends. This is Gauri Ekadam. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. The guests on my channel are two powerhouse women who have delivered success in every phase of their life. Rooted in ancient textile wisdom, the brand Kalanika is a charismatic tale of womanhood woven in exquisite fabrics which personifies female resilience and celebrates the country's indigenous brilliance. Ramya Rao and Kavya R. Chavli come from a defense background. Ramya is a general manager HR at Reliance Industries and is also known for being an anchor, speaker, entrepreneur. She is passionate about performing arts and woven weaves. She is driven and fierce in her approach. Kavya has explored her resonations of her artistic mind throughout her professional journey. Kavya is a top-of-the-line anchor, television presenter, corporate trainer, entrepreneur, model, performer, producer, traveler, just to name a few. Ramya and Kavya, inspired by their mother Lata Rao, aim to translate the power of India's diverse textures into the empowered expression adorned by women of today. Please welcome the co-founders of this beautiful brand, Kalanika, my dear friends Ramya Rao and Kavya R. Chavli.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. Thank you so much for taking out the time and coming here because I know you have such busy schedules. And the fact that you guys agreed, I was like, oh, brilliant.
Any opportunity that celebrates the 6 yards, we're in. So, yeah.
By the way, I'm wearing the 6 yards and it is so comfortable and so gorgeous, and I feel like, oh, I can do a lot of movement in the sari and it feels good. Otherwise, usually saris are somehow restraining, and I'm someone who loves saris. I absolutely love wearing saris. So any occasion, I just jump into my mom's closet and I'm like, yeah, what can I steal this time?
There's treasure hidden there, and we know that we have to make the best use of the treasure there.
Absolutely. So I am someone who adores wearing sari. So any occasion, any event where I can wear a sari and something as comfortable as this thing, as this beautiful fabric that I'm wearing today, definitely all hands on deck.
Awesome.
So getting on with my first question. First of all, I really want to congratulate the both of you on the success of this brand and how it's come up so beautifully. It's bloomed really gracefully, and many women are actually accepting it and, you know, buying these saris that you guys are selling. Now I know why, but it's really nice. So I have a question for you, that you guys have made some noise and facilitated some real change. So how did you find your voice?
So I think with respect to Kalanika, at least, it was way back, I think good 6-7 years back, when we started looking at how do we bring out the story of the beautiful weavers who are there in this place called Uppada. Uppada is this place in Andhra and near Kakinada, in fact, and it's the coastal area of Andhra. And we started noticing that there's beautiful work happening out there. It's connected to the roots of India, it's cultural, and more important, we wanted to bring that work out. We also noticed that I think Mom was doing this before. Yeah. You know, actually, way back in 2 decades back, Mom would bring those weaves out, share it with the relatives, and we started thinking that how can we leverage on technology, social media, and help give it a better reach.
Absolutely.
Wow.
In fact, I think what happens is saris, as you know, Indians, we are always looking at our original sari influences, which is our mothers, right?
Yeah.
So we've always had the opportunity to even adorn saris ever since we were kiddos. So it became like an integral part of our personality. So if somebody would say, hey, you know what, if I give you a business idea, we knew that if the business idea involves something called the 6 yards, why not? But if you look at the origin of the idea as to why Kalanika, why did it even start, the entire purpose was never about, hey, hum log baith ke sari bechenge. That was never the purpose. Hum log sari banayenge. No. The whole point was, we love saris and we know there are people who love saris, but saris makes us feel powerful.
Yes.
We want people to wear their power. So we thought, you know what, let's bring that narrative out through Kalanika.
And I was actually speaking to Ramya before we started shooting. I was telling her how I went onto your website for the past 2 weeks. That's what I've been doing, my research onto your brand. And I went onto the website and I really admired that you guys have a section, just a section dedicated to CEOs and empowered women, and how I just enjoyed that. Just watching and browsing through that section, I was like, Yeah, I mean, would feel empowered if I wear something like that.
I think it's so true, because even if you look at all your top leaders, be it politicians, be it CEOs, be it entrepreneurs for that matter, they're all actually wearing saris. They're wearing the part. And in fact, when you discuss being part of an international contingent, what do? You don't wear, hey, because saris are national costume. Sari was never our national costume.
Correct.
But you feel so powerful, which is why you choose a sari. So we're like, what's stopping us from wearing a part? Let's continue.
And there's something different. Like, I think the energy just shifts. When you, like, when I can only talk for myself, but like when I wear a sari, the energy shifts and I feel more graceful, I feel more, feminine. The entire energy of the body just shifts in a way, and I feel more classy and more elegant when I'm wearing a sari as compared to when I'm wearing other clothes, other forms.
So one of the reasons also, I think it could be because a sari takes the shape that you want to give it. We always say this, that a sari is a fabric of freedom and not a fabric of conformity. So you can take a sari because it's also an unstitched fabric. So take a sari, make it your own, make it anything. You can make a dress out of it, you can even make a dhoti out of it, you can do a cowl drape, you can do anything with it. And that's the reason, as you just shared, the energy that is woven around a sari is the energy you're giving, not what it's giving it back to you. So unlike a trouser or a skirt. So
I feel that is more conforming, like a trouser, a skirt. It's like, okay, this is it. This is.
Yeah, because
I mean, you can play around with it. Yeah, you can still play around with it, style it in different ways, but there's just something magical about wearing saris. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion, but there's something super magical about wearing saris. Even now, when I think about it, I associate saris with functions, with pujas. Like, after seeing your brand and how you've modernized the reach of saris, I can actually now see myself wearing that on a day-to-day basis, doing different things. It's not just like, oh, sari matlab puja, or a function, or wedding I have to attend somewhere. It can be so many things. Absolutely. And you can wear it in any which way. Like, you have modernized it in such a beautiful way. So you can wear it in any ways. So yeah, like, kudos to your brand for doing that. Absolutely. The next question, because I think you've touched based a little bit on it. How did you come up with the name Kalanika for the brand? I read up about it and it's very interesting. So I just want you to tell the viewers, how did you come up with that name?
Sure. From whatever we have been introduced to in our life, it has always been related to fine arts. Being Indian classical dancers, and then of course our parents put us in a lot of activities. Kala, which is your art, has been a common thread in our lives. And so when we thought to even come up with a name, we knew that it's going to be associated with art, because at the end, sari making is an art, sari wearing is an art. Everything around the world is art at the end of the day. So Kala was the first part of the word, and then we were thinking, what about the second one? And we were breaking our brains so much, right? I think.
Yeah, this happened around, I think, 2014. We were breaking our brains, and then one of our common friend who was with us, and he's from Dubai, he's from the UAE. Okay. And he brought in a little bit of Urdu or the Arabic element into it with the word nikah. And he said, hey, you know what? You're talking about the art or the skill. How about the marriage of the two? And how about that? And we said, you know what, let's do that. Let's call it Kala Nikah. So it's a marriage of art and skill. So the skill of the weavers and the art, because at the end, we're all artists. We love to express ourselves, right? Yeah. Express it in a sari. So it's got to be Kala Nikah. So that's how it started.
I literally have goosebumps listening to it. I swear. It's beautiful. It's so beautiful how two words, two different origins, merged together can sound so beautiful to the ears. So it's very nice. I even like the name, and when I read up about it, I remember when I read up about it, I had goosebumps. Now that hearing it from you as well is the same feeling. My next question is, we have a vast heritage of textiles and a variety of looms. And with every weave, there's a human story attached to it. It's the story of the karigar who is creating magic with the textile. What's Kalanika's contribution towards giving these master karigars a voice and a platform?
I think first of all, that's a very beautiful question, because at the end, whenever somebody starts something, there'll always be a purpose behind it. With regard to our karigars, in fact, when Kalanika started, the story was with one weaver, one loom, one village. Yeah. And we thought, hey, that's all our reach is. Pehle start karte hain, let's see how it progresses. Till today, which is close to like 60 weavers, another 160 looms, and close to 8 villages. Now, if you're talking about the impact, these set of weavers who actually, even if you go to Upada, 1 in 3 families, they own looms inside the house. We call it what? Penkutillu. That's what we call it in Telugu, right? These are these small, tiny huts, like jukkar aapko, you know, you've got to like sort of bend and go in, and then the looms are right there. These people are able to open shops. In the last 6 years, almost most of our viewers could actually open shops, or else they were only creating inside the house, keeping those sarees there, and then just anybody who could reach them could probably buy 1 or 2. But now they could step out and actually open the shops and reach to more people.
Wow.
And I think that's amazing how probably if Kalanika could have a little bit of stake in sort of helping them, why not?
Yeah.
Another thing is also introducing these digital initiatives to them. You know, a lot of people would not be aware. Discussing designs on WhatsApp, empowering them through these channels like GPay and all. I think this education comes from people who are in the urban cities like us, to share it with the ones who are in the...
I think even something as small as how to take the right picture.
Oh.
Getting them the smartphones and saying, this is how we take a nice picture of the design, because especially Jamdani sarees. In fact, Kavya is wearing a tissue Jamdani, self saree. So, or even I think this one, a Jamdani design, if you have to bring that beauty out and show to the customer that this is how the motif, this is called a motif, right? This is what the beauty of the motif is. How to take the right pictures, because sometimes we are in Bombay while mom is in Kakinada and she goes and sits with the weavers. We train them to how to take the right picture so that we can bring out the beauty of that. Otherwise, even a wrong picture can ruin how a motif looks.
So premium just goes away if the picture isn't great, and you can't sit and explain to the person saying that, hey, you know what, this is what. So you don't want to do that. You just want to show and you want to wow the people. So I think something as simple as.
And finally, yes, of course, when people start wearing Kalanika sarees or start, looking at a saree beyond, as you mentioned it, beyond a function, beyond a wedding wear and all, the more the reach is, the more their voice is heard, the more their work is seen. It's not just, are we going and designing, but it's they are the heroes. Actually, the weavers are the heroes of the country who are bringing that art out, and I think we are the platform, we are the channel. We want their voice
to be like a catalyst.
Yeah, we are like a catalyst. Actually, we are. Yeah.
And that's brilliant. Like, you have not only just given them a platform and a voice, but you're also teaching them the right skills to even modernize their approach with getting their voice out there. And I think that's really commendable, both of you. Like, the fact that you're teaching them how to take photos of small things. And now I understand when you explain ki this particular pattern should show, and if you take a wrong photo, that pattern won't show. So then you'll have to sit and explain to the people who are buying it, oh, this is what this saree is. So it's very nice how you're teaching them the right skills, you're giving them the right training, that tomorrow, not only with your brand, but if their kids want to set up a brand of their own, they can do it with the right skill set. And you're really modernizing their approach. That's beautiful, really beautiful, very commendable to both of you. Again, going back to the point of modernization, what was your inspiration towards modernizing the approach of women wearing sarees?
I think it stemmed from the fact that how do we look at sarees, and I think when we did our research, I'm sure predominantly people still across the world, and let's talk about India itself, we've always looked at our moms. Surprisingly, our moms have worn sarees for their daily wear. They would probably go sleep in a saree also, but for us, saree comes only during farewell. 10th class farewell, let's be honest, all of us have been there, right? Or 12th class farewell, or some teacher's day when we have to wear sarees to look like teachers. So somewhere we have not passed that legacy of a daily wear of a sari yet. So our intention was, if a sari is just a unstitched free fabric, why are we limiting it, right? Why are we limiting it? I think that was the first basic thought. And then I think we guys, because of anchoring and other events that we were part of, and also dancing, we always realized that wearing the pleats in a certain way could be restrictive for that particular activity. So how about changing? How about doing something else? How about adding a pant? And how about, we just started experimenting. And I think that's where Kala comes in, is stick to your roots, but fuse it without making it a khichdi.
And I think I can give a very interesting example for the shepherd community in Andhra. They have a drape called Bogili Posi Kattukodam. Okay. So what happens is, let's say if these set of women who are working in the farms or with other shepherd community, you won't expect them in this nivi style or even in a cowl drape. You can't expect them to work. So what they did is they took the sari and they made it a skirt in such a way that it's a functional garment for them. So at the end, what happens is we are only used to the Navy style, and we think, "Ha, sari, traditional sari means this is the only way." But there are more than 220 or 30 ways of wearing a sari. Yes, there are.
What?
Yes, there are. There are massive number of ways, and we instead we also started creating our own designs and our own patterns. Why? Is because for a particular activity, why don't you just experiment and see how it suits? In Kakinada, in our hometown, you'll see women cycling in saris. But the way they won't wear the Navy style and cycle, right? They'll probably do a kashta.
Yeah,
Yes.
like a kashta. I think that's something people in Bombay would relate to. Like, why would they wear a kashta style, or the fishermen or the fisherwomen community? They'll wear the sari in a typical way that'll help them move. That'll help them feel free. So there's no right or wrong style. So I think that thought was ingrained so well that we said, let's just try draping. In fact, some of our drape styles which are created by us have come out of sheer accident. कुछ बना रहे थे, कुछ और बन गया.
I think Lakme Fashion Week, when we were invited for Lakme Fashion Week, and both of us were like, okay, we just took the sari, and Ramya was probably trying to make something out of it, and then something else happened. She's like, hey dude, check this out, I tried this, this is what happened. And I'm like, hey, that looks good. I did something else happened. We both go there and they're like, listen, wait, we need your photos. And it was all like crazy time out there, because they're like, what did you do with that sari? And it was like a nice cape. She created like a red carpet cape out of it. So sometimes accidents do happen. It just creates another beautiful sari, a beautiful memory.
No, I'm like, even watching on Instagram now, I think it's this one gymnast, and she's doing these cartwheels in a sari, and I'm like, wow.
Absolutely. People, I think it's Parul, right? The gymnast you're referring to.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, I think one of our recent article in Times of India, so we were also featured in that article alongside Parul, and then there's Sheetal Mahajan, who went skydiving in a sari. Then there is this lady from TCS, I believe, who did a marathon.
Yes,
Jayanti, for that matter.
She ran
a marathon in sari. So the thing is, none of us sitting here are trying to prove to people saying, hey, sari is functional, please wear sari is the best thing that's ever happened to you. That's not the plan. The plan is to bust that myth that sari can only be worn for traditional events. Sari mein hum uncomfortable honge. So it's just a way to bust saying that wear the way you like it.
So the Gilly Posi Katukoram drape that Kavya spoke about, she wore that for the hike. We went for the we went to this place called Lambasingi, which is this place.
Yeah, I saw your Insta stories of that.
So try it, and again the thought is, if it's uncomfortable, find out why it's uncomfortable. Is it because of pleats? Then don't put the pleats in the front, put the pleats to the side. In the cape drape that I created for Lakme Fashion Week, my pleats are to the side for a reason, so that I can actually walk comfortably. So again, don't look at it like a limitation. You will be able to create wonders out of it. It's a canvas at the end.
I think you've spoken something very profound, and that applies the same towards life. Like, if you feel like your life is uncomfortable at a certain point, don't look at it why it's uncomfortable. Don't create a limitation. Figure out what you can do to make the change and make the difference. That's how, other perspectives and other venues and avenues open up for you, and then you start moving forward. So that's something very profound that you've said, which applies to saris, but it also applies to life on a very larger scale.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. Moving on to the next question. I have witnessed the both of you evolve so gracefully in the past decade. And you both are such vested women in your respective turfs. And that translates beautifully in the vision of your brand, which is all about celebrating womanhood and empowering women. My question to you is, what is your personal journey of self-empowerment? What are your core values?
That's a beautiful question.
I love this question, actually.
I think because it's especially got to do with the core values as such. I think, okay, so personally, the core values have also shifted like a decade back when we met, right, versus the person that I am today or who we are today. It has shifted because of a lot of reasons, the experiences that we have gathered. So from my personal journey, one of my core value is, I think it's about power. When I say power, is to feel empowered in who you are, however, aspire for growth, which is don't just be complacent and sit. And I have been in that phase where I've just been complacent. I sat down and I said, life अच्छा ही चल रहा है ना, problems नहीं है तो क्यों आगे बढ़ने का है? And I have been in that. It took me a lot to overcome that and move on and become this person where power is to not just give power and make people feel empowered. Are you first feeling empowered? It's easier to make others feel empowered through your words and through your work. It actually is. But am I feeling empowered with the work that I do, with the way I am, the way I conduct myself, and the way I feel about myself? So for me, that is one of my core values. Of course, the next few would be compassion and empathy, which I think stems from our mom. It comes directly from mom. From mom, it's always been about empathy and all. So I would definitely go with my core values being power, empathy, and compassion. These three, as such. Considering I've worked with companies in IT, media, and now in manufacturing setup and all, I also learn a lot from the companies that I've worked for. Because when you're working in a company, you're also trying to take in those values as well and imbibe them with you. So these would be mine. Yeah.
For me, I think it would be more about versatility. The reason is, I think ever since we were kids, Dad being in the Navy, and we've been traveling. In fact, if somebody asks us, I would call myself a khana badosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I've been that kind of person who would love to capture experiences wherever I go, because that becomes my story. That becomes my life. And so for me, I think versatility is definite core value. The reason is only because I've always been the kind of person, even if earlier when I started my career after engineering, I was in the IT sector, then I moved to media, and then I said, you know what, this is not what I want to do, so I will take that risk. I packed my bags from Bangalore, came to Mumbai, and became a live events anchor. Last 10 years, I've been hosting shows, traveling across the globe. Why I've been doing that is only because I love gathering experiences. So even being on the stage, wearing saris, be it for the government functions, be it for Prime Minister Modi, be it for the Chief Minister, be it for any of the top-notch leaders, when I wear my saris and when I interact with people, when I'm in different places, I'm again gathering experiences. That becomes my story to tell. So for me, that comes from versatility. If you're versatile enough to observe, if you're versatile enough to adapt, if you're versatile enough to absorb, that for me is a huge power thing. So I think if you ask me for my main core value, it will always be versatility, which is why in terms of drapes also, the way we come up with designs, in Kalanika as well, when we started, it was all very typical set of motifs, typical set of designs. And then we came on board and we said, no, we've got to change this. Because people expect that, hey, if something is coming from a particular place, it'll be in a certain way. You need to change. How do you change? Is by being versatile, by absorbing experiences from somewhere else, applying it here. So that would be my first core value. My another important core value, of course, would be empathy. I think that's somewhere we definitely connect, because if and this is very helpful in business. If you know what your customers want, you will give them exactly that. Maybe it'll take time in changing the narratives, but you know what they want. You know what kind of content they want. You know what kind of colors they want. That's why color combinations, that's something we both brainstorm with our weavers. Even our weaver is like, Madam Garu, idi ella possible? They ask this. And then we say, no, try mixing this color with that color and this, and let's come up with something. So we merge, at least I try to merge that versatility, but both of us have that very strong sense of empathy. It's been very, very helpful, and it's made us also evolve into better people.
And you both, like, together, it's a beautiful blend, as well as not just at work, but like even personally that I know you, where, for example, you lack, she somehow just fulfills that, and where you lack, she fulfills that. So it's a beautiful blend, merger of two beautiful souls coming together and creating a beautiful palette of saris, be it saris or be it even at your works or even when you're just chilling out. Like, we've had so many experiences of chilling out together, and I just know that somehow you both balance each other, and it's really nice to see that teamwork, not only at work but in other areas of your life. So that's something I really commend both of you on.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. What's your perception of how empowered women and how empowered men can contribute towards the healing of this world? And what are the first few things that they can start doing?
Beautiful. I think another fantastic question. Thanks, Gauri, for that. So when I see, or when I talk about somebody who's empowered, for me, empowerment is feeling secure of who you are. So if the world around is filled with people who are secure, one thing is there's no room for comparisons, there's no room for drama, unnecessary drama. We love the regular, the regular acha wala 70mm drama is good, but there's no room for, oh, is she or he doing better than me, so I should do, and there is no room for negativity. So empowerment comes from feeling secure of who you are, firstly. So if we have empowered men, who are also secure about empowered women, that's going to be a beautiful place. And I think it comes from homes. It comes from basically from your own surroundings. I don't need to have the whole world. Is my world empowered enough? Is my world filled with men who are empowered? And I can truly say that. I think all of us, thankfully, we are blessed to come from families where the men are actually secure that their women are. In fact, I think the kind of our respective spouses, they're like, you guys do well, we would sit and we will be the cheerleaders. Like they are, and I can totally vouch for that. So for me, I would say empowered men and women would take the best decisions, not just for themselves, but for the world around, because they're secure. That's first, yeah.
I mean, that's a beautiful gem of wisdom that you've just dropped. Thank you.
No, I really appreciate what you shared, and while you shared that, I thought I'll also just share a different point, because I totally concur with what Ramya said. Another thing is that our definition of empowerment is education. The more degrees you have, I am this, I'm that, and I've done this, and the more titles you have. I think we need to stem away from titles.
True.
When that happens, then you are educated and you're not just literate. Because the world needs education, not literacy. So I think what happens is, whether it's empowered women and empowered men, who are empowered? If you're educated, and how does that come? From learning. Again, what do you learn? Not reading books, you learn from the environment again, right? So I think when you learn more, you give more. You don't take more, you give more to the society. So I think a lot of us, we as people are the government. We as people are the leaders. We as people are change agents. So we got to be the ones who can change that world, and that comes from education. Corely from education, not from literacy. I feel there's a huge difference there. Because in the books, they'll tell you how to behave in the society. It's just like I'm reading a book on how to swim. I need to swim to learn how to swim. So education will be a huge important factor in this.
Adding on to your point, the experiences that you have in life, they shape you. They make you the person that you are today. Like, your experiences have made you the people that you are. My experiences have made me the person that I am.
And that's amazing, because nobody can take that away from you.
Exactly.
And that is the unique you, right?
Exactly. That's what makes us us. And that's what we have to offer to the table. And this is something that even when I sit with my clients, I talk to them about, my women clients or my male clients, I talk to them about, how are you empowering yourself? How are you honoring yourself in every choice you make? And the choice can be the thought that you're creating, the food that you're consuming, the content that you're watching, the music that you're listening to. How are you honoring yourself? And there's no such thing as right and wrong. But what works for you? What is in alignment with you? What are you doing to make more of that, make more of that vibration, make more of that energy? So that's something really beautiful, like 2 beautiful drops of wisdom that you've dropped. So thank you so much for that. You have always shared how meaningful your relationship is with your parents, and your mom has played a huge role in the inspiration of the birth of this brand. So I'm curious to know, what do you think she is the most proud of that you both have achieved personally?
Ooh. This comes like a total plot twist. I never expected this question, and I really like that, because many people in the journey of startups, journey of brands, don't ask this question. So thank you for that. But if I had to look back, and if you were to ask my mother, I think she's someone who finds pride in simplicity. So I think the one thing that she would definitely be proud of is the way I think she really loves the fact that she knows how we know how to conduct ourselves with people. And I think she takes huge pride in that, because she says one thing is that we are social animals, right? We're here. You can't treat somebody badly. You can't talk rudely to people. And I think she's imbibed those values. I think if you ask her, I think she's really happy. She's seen the way we've conducted ourselves with people, whether I'm on stage or off stage, whether it's our families, the extended families with husbands and my in-laws and all. I think she always says, "Beta, I like the way how you conduct yourselves around people and how you treat people." So I think that's something she
So while there would be these achievements, and I think always we would have these conversations, dad and mom. Dad is more vocal. Papa is, and I think somewhere we've got those qualities of being more vocal. Mom is less vocal, but she actually says a lot by not saying much. Dad would be like, "Beta, so good you have," because we went to NCC, RD Parade, and whatever achievements in terms of titles that she was talking about, Papa feels very good that he sees his 2 confident twin daughters. Mom, on the other hand, is the absolute opposite. She sees that, okay, you guys are flying high, feet on the ground. She is very clear on that. That kuch bhi ho jaye, whatever you become in your life, your feet have to be firmly on the ground. So when she sees us that we're not flying with this pride and all, she takes pride that she's passed on the right values. So it comes, stay simple. I mean, aspire for greatness, but simplicity at its core. So empathy, simplicity, and if somewhere we deviate even little, and we have her coming more than Papa, she'll come. Ain't it? So yeah, so I think she would be proud of that.
No, I think I resonate a lot with what you just said, even in my personal family. My dad is someone, again, who's, about achievements and what I have done in my life. But then my mom, I always say this, that she is the one who runs 3 houses, because, my brother's somewhere, my father's somewhere, I'm somewhere. So if she is not, there, then all this will go standstill. So she is the one who brings us all down to the ground, and she is the one who, really plants our feet on the ground. Like whenever I'm flying high and I'm too up there, and she's like, yeah, come down a little bit, become more grounded, more humble. And I think our mothers do that. They nurture us in the most beautiful way, and they make us humble.
Yeah.
So that is something I really resonate with the both of you.
Mm-hmm.
You both have such a dynamic work life. How do you navigate relationships with such busy schedules?
Wow. So, okay, so my way of looking at this is, one is expectation setting. So, while it's very easy, and very honestly, I'm sure Kavya and I would resonate with the fact that we are blessed again to have the kind of spouse who give that. I wouldn't say that's why I don't like to use the word allow, because there's no allowing of freedom. But while they're very happy about who we are, what we want to become, and things like that, it's also expectation setting from the other side. Are we as women setting that expectation for the relationship that we want? Because men set it very clearly, then why aren't we as women doing? So somewhere I think it's why we're able to manage, be it work, relationships and all, and it's not like it's the best, it's still getting there, one step at a time, it's a work in progress. But we're able to do that is because one is the expectation setting from our side, and second, of course, I think we're blessed that we've got the guys the kind, who bring in that clarity of freedom and be who you are out there as well. So that's why it kind of is easy. And I should be honest, I'm glad there is a weekend called Saturday, Sunday, because it helps. It really helps. Yeah, it does, okay. It helps in, because we have our own other work also happening. So for me, the moment the Saturday, Sunday comes, my antennas are up, because I'm like, let's get Kalanika rolling, let's do different things. So it helps to have that little additional time, because all 7 days, all of us working, we're going to be all fired up. Yeah.
True.
So for me, it's about understanding one thing, which is, when people say work-life balance, there is never going to be a balance.
True.
It's never going to happen. So when they say, hey, you know what, I'll manage my work, I'll manage my life, it's never 50-50.
No.
In one particular day, if one is 80, the other will be 20.
Correct.
Another day, it'll be 50-50, good for you. Because in my work, what I do, before COVID happened, I think I was staying home for maybe just 10-15 days. I would say, hey Arjun, okay, hi. Okay, bye, I'm going here, I'm going there, I'm going hosting my show, I'm traveling and all. And he knew who he was marrying.
Yeah.
My husband always knew. Of course, he's my best friend. So he being my cheerleader. The thing is that it'll never be 50-50. So the moment that is already ingrained in your mind, you're not expecting it to be 50-50. So you're not battling it.
Yeah.
You're not worrying, oh, aaj to maine work ko itna time diya, why didn't I give time to my relationship? You're not battling it.
Correct.
You're just maneuvering it. So never try controlling it, just try managing around it. That's the whole point. So first step is a fact to understand that it'll never be 50-50. Second thing is, relationships, whether it's work, whether it's personal, whether it's with your pet or with your home, it's a give and take.
Yeah.
Correct.
You've got to give as much as possible, and then you can even take. You don't even need to demand. Just take, because it'll come back to you.
Okay.
But give that love, and we need to take it seriously.
Yes.
Because your husbands, your brothers, your fathers, whoever, these people are not bothered about titles, president in a particular company, founder of a particular company, no. They are bothered about who are you with me.
Correct.
Hai na? So
Yes.
that is important. When you respect that, you will get it back. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think definitely respecting your relationships. Even with me, when I think about my day, I'm running my business, I'm now working on this project, like running my channel, working with my crew, having production meetings, then even working on a book that I'm co-writing with my grandmother. There are so many things going on, and then even taking time for my self-care, cooking, and all these things. Like, there is no such thing as balance. There are days when you will feel overwhelmed and you're like, okay, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit on my couch and just watch Netflix because I just want to become numb to all the things that are happening. So not getting overwhelmed in that moment and knowing that it's all right. Just take the moment as it is and just move with it step by step. I think that's the key, and you both have said it so beautifully. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
No, I think you're equally sharing a lot of some really interesting points yourself, which is kind of like an eye-opener for us through your experiences. So thank you for that. And another thing is that your questions, they're so good, which is why the responses hopefully will be really good. It's the questions that always matter.
Thank you. With all the knowledge and the wisdom that you have today, what advice would you give to your younger version of yourself?
I keep thinking of this question. I'm so glad it was asked. I would, at least the advice that I would give to my younger self would be is don't think too much. If you were so sure, just go and do it. Because I think we know there are a few decisions that we have taken in our life which has come because we were not vocal about it. So if I go back, at least in my early 20s, I would say don't conform. And I think somewhere we conformed to a few things that we did. Don't conform, just do it. Take that risk that's required to be taken even back then. We are taking risks now, which is great, but we could have taken back then. So I would have told myself, take that risk. Take the risk, just do it.
I would agree with Ramya as well. In the process of overthinking to put the best foot forward, I probably didn't take that step ahead.
True.
Because I was like, no, this is not my best version. No, I'm not ready yet. No, I think I can still be better than this. In that process, what happens is you lose out on time.
True.
And then you lose out on that opportunity. They say, right, luck is the marriage of opportunity with hard work or preparation, preparation and the opportunity happening. So the thing what happens is opportunities are there. Everything is right there. So in my 20s, if I look back, I think it would just be that I was just busy happily overthinking. I unnecessarily wasted my time overthinking. Had I not, I think whatever I'm achieving right now, I could have achieved it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I just delayed that thing. So my younger self, the only thing I'll say is, Kavya, please don't overthink. Go for it. That's it.
No, that's actually brilliant, and I think I can also resonate with that. Looking back at my life, there are times when I'm like, oh, I had that chance or I had that opportunity. Just because I wasn't willing to take the plunge or that leap of faith, that opportunity slided by. I'm not saying that, okay, that slided by, another did not present itself, but the second time when it presented itself or something better presented itself, that's when, my gut instinct stepped in and I was like, okay, no, jump. What's the worst that can happen? You'll fail, you'll learn, you'll have an experience, you'll move on. That's something very beautiful that you shared.
And I think one more thing what I would definitely want to tell myself, and which is something I keep reminding myself because it's not easy, it's easily said than done, is rejection is redirection, right?
True.
It is so true because even if you're in your 20s or in your 30s or 40s, 50s, you will be rejected. Your ideas will be rejected, but it's not because you're a bad person. It's not because I don't like your face.
Yeah.
It is just because it didn't suit that time. So you know what? Come back again.
Yeah.
But consistently, if you're pushing that idea, it'll find its voice.
Yeah.
So if somebody rejects you, they're not rejecting because they didn't like you.
Yeah.
It didn't suit at that time. So that's something I keep reminding myself because 20s was about conforming to rejections.
Yes.
I don't want my 30s to be about that. So
yes.
Now I don't bother about rejections.
Yeah, I think I now take rejections with stride, be it at work, be it in my personal life. For me, it's just a redirection. That just is not in alignment with me. So It's not going to work out at this time. Maybe in the future, it's going to show up again and that's when I will take it up. But right now, that project or that person or that friendship honestly is not in alignment with me. So it's okay. Allow them to pass. Bless them and allow them to pass. So that's very beautiful what you said. Yeah. 2 really good drops of wisdom again. What is your perception of self-love and self-worth?
I think self-worth is what I would want to first talk about. Is we are in this digital age, especially today. At least when back for the ones who were born in the 70s and 80s and all, that was not there. But for the ones coming in the 90s and 2000 and so on, we are born with this thing that am I worth it? Am I worth putting up that video on Instagram? Don't wait for that perfection. I think for me, self-worth is self-belief. Self-belief then leads to self-confidence. So do I know my strengths? Do I know my weaknesses? Do I know my opportunities, my threats? And am I operating from that, or am I operating by looking at others' Instagram, others' Facebook, and what others are doing? So self-worth is very important. It's easy for others to put you down if you allow them to. And it's easy for you to put yourselves down if you're only constantly thinking of what you are not able to do. There's so much that all of us are doing, but we are always busy looking at that dot in that circle ki ye kyun nahi kar pa rahe. So let's say, for example, I'm able to sell X number of sarees. The instant thought is, why am I not able to do this? But I focus on that. So self-worth comes from self-belief, and I think it's a constant reassurance. At least in the world where we are today, we need to constantly reassure ourselves. And with self-worth, I think self-love is be happy if your body. I think we were talking about this to my sister-in-law, who's a cardiac surgeon also, Dr. Surabhi. So we were just discussing that if you were able to, overcome 2020, that whole COVID phase, and you were safe. Today, if you're alive, able to wake up and breathe, it means somewhere your body is doing the right thing. Are you taking good care of it? Yeah. Or are you rejecting, saying, hey, my body is aisa hai, main aise hu, main moti hu, patli hu, and all of that? Your body has sustained and has overcome something called COVID-19. Rejoice, be happy, keep up with it. So self-love also comes from accepting yourselves, and it's not easy. So it's a constant thing. It's a work in progress, I would say, but it's very, very important.
To me, when we talk about self-worth, while it resonates with what Ramya said, I think till 80s, 90s, even till 2000s, we were still okay with self-worth as a concept. Now we are deciding, we are letting the numbers decide our self-worth.
Absolutely.
That's where the mistake is happening.
Exactly.
When I connect with some new people and they're like, hey Kavya, your Instagram handle, oh, you got these many followers. And then when did you then decide that I'm an important person? I'm like, why did you let the numbers decide if I'm important or not?
Yeah.
I feel after 2010, again, this discussion is definitely not about if social media is healthy or not. It's amazing. I love this space because you know what? I probably made some friends on Twitter with whom I could go and hang around. All of this is great, but don't allow the numbers to decide if you are important, if you're famous, if you're a personality, if you're doing well. With Kalanika as well, it so happens that there are so many customers, and now there are so many brands out there on social media, right? Sometimes when we come up with some kind of a design, some people, they often say, hey, but those guys or those teams are also doing something like this, why can't you also create? Then that's when I say, hey, you want another clone? Why do you want another clone? You will be happy, as a customer you'll be happy if they're doing something and we're doing something different. So don't ask us to be clones, but they have more followers. Let them have followers. I am fine with it. I'm not saying having followers is not a good thing, but don't let the numbers decide that you're doing a good job or not. If you're doing a fabulous job, the numbers don't need to decide that, because numbers are to show that you are popular. Are you awesome? I don't think numbers decide that. Are you good with your R&D? I don't think numbers decide that. But are you popular? Numbers do decide. So don't let numbers decide your self-worth.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Don't let numbers decide if you're on the right track or not. You know what you wanted to do, go, chase it. I'll give you another example. Talk about our traditional Indian sari brands. You would have gone shopping, we would have gone shopping and all. Tab to, they never had any social media handles. They were successfully doing their business, correct? They are on social media. They don't even have more than 20-30k followers. Does that mean that their business has gone down?
Correct.
No, they are busy working offline, which is why online they don't care a damn.
Exactly.
That means offline they're making money. Online, the social currency doesn't matter because the currency is sitting in the bank.
Like worry about the numbers on the balance sheet.
Not on this thing. So don't let these numbers decide your self-worth. That's number one. Second thing, coming to self-love, it's actually a very tough concept. It's a very loosely used word for a lot of people. Very loosely used word, especially, I'm sorry, but there are certain set of a profession that is literally raking in money in that department, which is not a good thing. But self-love comes from a core fact that just be vested in activities, please. This is something I really want to share is, if you're sitting idle, you will never find the definition of self-love.
That is true.
Why? Because an idle man's mind is a devil's workshop. Devil doesn't fall in love. Devil will never do that, right? The whole point is, pick an activity. Pick something that you like. Today you may not like, tomorrow move on. But keep being in that quest. That is self-love. You know why? Because you're keeping your mind busy in doing something. I was not happy with this. Maybe I'm not happy doing gardening. I'll probably start doing pottery. Tomorrow I may not like it. I'll find something, but find something that is self-love. You know why? Because you're finding ways to keep your mind active. You're finding ways to keep your body active. You're finding ways to keep yourself active. That for me is self-love. Yes, again, I love going to spas. She knows what a spa junkie we both are. Yeah, go yourself. Treat yourself to massages. Treat yourself to salons. Get hair colored like this. Go wacky. Do whatever you want. That is also self-love. But the most crucial part of self-love, which a lot of people forget, is to do with that. Keep yourself active.
Yeah.
Keep yourself busy. Keep yourself busy doing productive things. You will find your self-love automatically in the process.
Yeah.
So,
And I think this was never a question of, if you think of it, self-love and self-worth and all questions were never there when we were younger because we didn't have time for it.
Busy studying, exams, results. Yeah. No, even like you said, if I apply it to the spiritual world, like the concept of spirituality, when I talk to my clients and when we have sessions, when I ask them, what is your self-love? What is your ritual of self-love? The basic answer that I get is, oh, I went shopping today, or oh, I went and got my nails done today, or I got my hair done. That's not wrong. That is absolutely correct. That is a form of self-love. But going to the roots of what self-love is, we all have the masculine and the feminine, the divine masculine and the divine feminine within ourselves. What are you doing to nurture the divine feminine? Because feminine energy is all about nourishment and nurturing and loving and caring. So what are you doing to love yourself? What are you doing to nurture yourself? How are you allowing your activities, like you said, to nurture yourself? How is pottery helping you? How is cooking? For me, self-love, a form of self-love is cooking. Cooking a wholesome meal, not only for myself, but for the people around me. I enjoy that. And that is something that I have taken down from my lineage, my ancestors. My mom does that. She enjoys throwing, big parties. So I've grown up seeing that, and I have taken that from her. And that did not become like, I need to cook I enjoy that. I enjoy playing bhajans or spiritual talks or TED talks while I'm cooking, because that's my space, that's my turf. And when I'm doing that, that's how I'm nurturing myself. My dad loves paintings. He does canvases and oil painting. So he loves that. But his profession is completely different. So, how you're balancing both is I think the magic lies in there. So how you love yourself. Everyone has a different form of communication of self-love, but how are you communicating your self-love and your self-worth? And it's not, like you said, it's not about validation. It is not about how Ramya validates me or how Kavya validates me. It's how I am validating myself and how I am stepping into my arena, which I have so rightfully taken place in.
Absolutely.
So that's something that even I completely resonate with your points as well. So thank you for that. Moving on to the next question. When you have put so much time, effort and energy into a project and it's not reciprocated in the manner that you have expected, how do you respond to failures? What is your process?
So firstly, our expressions, both of us, I'll show that also. We'll be like, we both go like, what happened? So it's not crying, but we're like, so first thing is our eyebrows immediately shrink. So very honestly, it hurts. It hurts. I'm not gonna sugarcoat and say, no, it hurts. But I think what she just mentioned, right? I think in our 30s now we have learned that rejection is a redirection. I think the coach was talking about this, that, play the game. It's not play the game to win it. First get onto that field, play the game. So I can watch and say, oh, Roger Federer has not played this one. I think recently I was watching some football with my husband, and I said, oh, he should have gone and passed it there. And my husband looked at me like, okay. Then, we're just having this conversation. It's like, go play. You're going to make mistakes. Even the best of the footballers, dancers, every one of us, we all make mistakes on that field, but you're on the field. You're not sitting and watching. So today, I think, yes, there are many projects that have failed.
I can share one personal myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
See, one thing is that, either you be a spectator or you become spectacular. As simple as that.
Oh, I love what you just said.
Now, as a spectator, you'll sit and judge people and say, "Okay, अरे ये करना था. Had she done this way? Why can't Kalanika do this?" You know, that's what a spectator is talking. Let the spectator be on the field and do that. It's a different game,
Correct.
right? But I'll tell you a personal experience. Me and my friend, we started something called as a Loka Jewels, okay? Loka, the word is locum, right? Which means world. And both of us being avid travelers, we would travel across the world and get the karigars to function. It still has a social media page also. It's still alive. It's like not functioning, but it's there. We started that because we love jewelry, okay? Statement jewelry and all. It became like a huge trend and we started that. In the process, my purpose was different, her purpose was different, and it became stagnant. So we had to shut that business. We invested so much money in that. We did great sales. Everything was amazing, but we had to shut it and we had to take a conscious call because for the greater good. Is that what we wanted to become? Did we want to become jewelry designers? Did we want to become jewelry sellers? No. It was more like a hobby. But beyond a point, a hobby can only be a hobby. It can never be a business model. We shut that. And when we shut that, it wasn't a great news. It wasn't like we were partying. It was more like, bhai, paise atak gaye yaar. Being honest, that's the actual emotion. You're not worried about thinking, I have close to these many lakhs rupees, whatever, still there. How do I get that back? So first emotion is always that, dude, my money, and this money is not some VC angel who's come with wings and invested. No, this is your own hard-earned money. So when you bootstrap a particular business, every pie that you put, it's come from hard work. For me, it was my anchoring money. All the money I was making as an anchor, I put that in the business, and that's gone kaput, right? So my first emotion was like, damn. The second emotion, of course, is I'm going to try pivoting. What I'm going to try doing, of course, is I'll adapt. Now, let's say there's a jewelry sitting there, and these are Hathi Karigari, and they're amazing statement neck pieces worth 25, 30 grand, and like that kind of worth. So maybe what I'll do is, I'll probably do an exhibition, or I'll probably find a buyer and get them to be a part of it. Or maybe I'll just one day do a shoot for sarees and maybe make it as a combo package. What I'll do is I'll pivot. I'll not sit and, Sal saying, okay, now what? There is no room for now what. It is only room for what next. Right?
I think some of the sarees which we created, so with respect to Kalanika, if you ask what the bundles of a failure story, that will take a lot of time. So we'll just look at one is, we had created a lot of product point of view, we knew we were creating high product, but does the customer want it or not? That's the next question, right? So there are quite a few sarees that remained. They never got sold. So it's not that every saree that got sold. And we were surprised. We were like, itne achhi quality ki saree hai, color acha hai, kyun log nahi le rahe hain? There are many sarees that just remain. And when I say remain, like even 5 years, 6 years. Now the good thing about hand woven fabrics is they get better and better with age, and that's why they call as legacy weaves. Hand woven. So a power loom sari will not get better with age. It's just status quo. It's the way it is. But a hand woven sari made by the weavers, it gets better and better. In fact, a cotton sari gets better with every wash also as well. So so we had these saris that were remaining, and they were remaining. We're like, what do we do with them? And we chose that when we start doing our styling videos, we said, okay, they're there. And we have no intention to sell old saris to the customers as well. And we don't believe in clearance sale. I mean, that's not the way we work. So there's no clearance sale per se. So we said, okay, now these saris are there. Okay, let's use it for styling. And when we started using for styling videos, people started seeing the saris. They said, hey, this is a beautiful creation. So when we put that sari out, when people asked, we created new saris. So you're still able to get that design out because you, as she said, pivoted. You'll use it for something else.
You're adapting to your failures. I think that's very beautiful.
Another, I think, quick point that I wanted to share is whenever you start a particular project, it's nothing but an idea.
Correct.
But the customers always want to know 5 different ways of getting that idea. See, we'll get that one way of presenting the idea to the customers. But if you can take that one idea and present it to the customers in 5 different ways, that way what we're doing is we're reaching out to 5 different sections of audience.
Yes.
One section will understand an idea and will then be a part of it.
Correct.
So that's important.
No, I think that's brilliant. Like adapting, pivoting, and just when you said pivot, the entire vision of Friends came into my head. So I think that's beautiful. How he's like, Ross is like pivot. So you're actually moving around the obstacle and not seeing it as an obstacle, but also like an opportunity of how we can, if we can come out of it. If not, then what can we do better next time? So that's really, really beautiful. And moving on to the last question. What is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
I'll put that in two sections. One is for Kalanika, the brand, and one is for me personally.
Okay.
Because as an individual, we have immense power of leaving a legacy behind.
Yes.
So why not? As Kalanika, I think one thing that I feel that we want to remind people is just wear your power. Yeah. Always wear your power. That's something. So when people think about being powerful, it is not about, again, कि मैं ये बन जाऊंगा तो I'll become powerful. No, it's just about own up yourself, right?
Yeah.
So just like a sari doesn't come with these tags like M, L, XL, right? That comes only in other outfits. A sari never comes with that, right? So don't let these titles and all define you.
Yeah.
You define yourself. You give a definition to yourself. So if Kalanika has to leave a legacy, I think it would be more about just wear your power.
Yeah.
Wear it every day, every minute. Be yourself. Be powerful. That's one thing. Personally, if I really would want to leave a legacy for me as a personal brand, as Kavya, I really want people to probably remember me as a person who could differentiate between being educated and being literate. It's so important because I am a BTech myself. I graduated from a very prestigious university. Did I make the most of it? No. But it's nice to flaunt it on my resume. It's nice to flaunt it on my LinkedIn profile. But am I doing anything closer to that? No. So don't worry about these titles. I think that's something I would want people to remember me as someone who moved beyond titles and just followed her passion. I think that's something because she knew that there's a difference between just being literate and being educated. So I think that's something I would want people to remember me as. Yeah.
Well said.
So I think with respect to Kalanika, as you said rightly, I think wear your power is what we believe in, and whoever you are, whatever you wear, actually, wear your power. Yeah. Be you, and whatever that defines you. I think many people say that, oh, these people are authentic, these people are not authentic. Who are others to judge if somebody is authentic or not? So wear your power. From Kalanika, definitely that, and of course, wear your power in finding your roots, in getting the art out, getting the artist in you out. That's what I think for Kalanika I would definitely say. For me personally, as Ramya Rao, I think the legacy that I would want to leave behind is it's okay to be nice to others. Because many people actually come and say, oh, don't be too nice and all, but I think it's okay to be nice to others in a world where we are already competing and all. So empathy, definitely, and compassion. You can be a leader by having those two. You don't need to always be only a competitive this. You can always demonstrate empathy and compassion and be the leader you want to be. So that's definitely one. And second is, of course, find happiness in small things. Just find happiness. And if it's going eating cheese, going eating what you want, whatever, wearing a sari, not wearing a sari, whatever you do, just find happiness in it. So I would want people to remember that when this about Ramya, that there was always empathy. She would always ensure what are others feeling first. However, not at the cost of putting yourselves down. That is not empathy, by the way. People have a tendency to think empathy matlab apna sab kuch de do. Nahin. Empathy at the cost of not putting yourselves down. You are first to yourselves, but empathizing with the world, what they're going through, and trying to be there as much as you can. Don't have to go overboard, and just be happy. Just be happy.
Well said, like both of you completely resonate with your points. Now I think the dynamic is shifting. Many people are awakening to empowerment, but before it was all about competition. Like if I am forward, if I am running forward, like Ramya Kavya cannot beat me. Like how do I push them? That was unfortunately the mindset and the pattern. And now that perception, that pattern is shifting, which I am so proud of. And I feel really, really great about that. And you both speak so passionately about that as well. So thank you so much. And it's all about genuinely empowering other people. So if you have something, how can I be of service? For no other reason but just being a part of your journey. That's it. There is no other reason for me providing my services or me providing my help or my time or my effort or my energy or even being on that phone call. How can I be a part of your journey so that I empower you? And through that, I'm empowering myself. It's the same energy flow. It's the ebb and flow of energy. It's that infinity, So it's genuinely being in the moment and being there for your loved ones. And like you said, but loving yourself first through the process. It takes me back to that saying, my cup runneth over. What's running over is your right over it. Like you have right over it, but what's in the cup is mine. You can't put your dirty hands into my cup and dirty my water. So my cup runneth over. So the water that is inside is nourishing me, it's nurturing me, hence I can be there of service for other people. So Beautiful. Well said. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. I definitely feel like we can do part 2, part 3, part 4 of this very easily. But this definitely has been a very enlightening and an uplifting conversation. So I really thank the both of you for taking the time out.
In fact, I think we should thank you because I think when stories are out, there are enablers, like, you know, there are people who are getting these stories out. So through your conversation with us, you're bringing a different story to the people. So I think if that kind of catalyst is not there, these stories will not be out. These kind of responses will not be out. So I think I always feel that I should thank you for those beautiful questions, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Good fun to, you know, catch up and of course and have conversations which empower one another. It's not about one way or something or a guest and host, but it's empowering conversations and fun conversations. Again, finding happiness in these simple joys of life.
And then dressing up. Like, don't forget this beautiful saris that we are wearing, dressing up. Always, there's always a reason to dress up. And always a reason to wear saris now.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, guys, for being here, taking out time from your busy schedule. And really grateful for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge with the people out there, and sharing your beautiful brand. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure is ours. Thank you.
And for more such creative, conscious content, please hit the like, share and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell icon, because you're going to get more of this kind of content. Thank you so much, and I really hope you have a blessed week ahead.